I'm joined today by Dr. Jill Stein, who's an organizer, physician, environmental health advocate. She was the Green Party's presidential candidate in 2012, and she is currently seeking the Green Party's presidential nomination for 2016. Growing up in Massachusetts, I obviously was aware of your gubernatorial runs as well. You've been involved in politics in one way or another, even before you officially ran for anything. I mean, you essentially were a political activist long before you were an official candidate, weren't you?
That's right. I was dragged kicking and screaming. In fact, I was tricked into running for office. But as a medical doctor, I saw things really going down the tubes in the medical clinic and in the community. These epidemics of asthma, cancer, learning disabilities, obesity, diabetes, you name it, all these things in kids and young people and adults for that matter that we had never seen before. And I felt like a doc in the clinic. I was giving people pills and pushing them back out to the things that were making them sick to start with. Everything from dirty air to polluted water and a sick food system, the stresses of poverty and homelessness and so on. So I became very involved in advocacy groups. And it was after about 15 years of that, I realized we weren't going forward. We were only accelerating backwards. So I was basically tricked into running for governor in 2002 against Mitt Romney by the Green Party, which said, hey, we agree with your platform, just call it a governor campaign and have a bigger discussion. And I sort of fell for that and discovered, I went into it out of desperation and I came out of it with inspiration, just seeing that there was all this really good community energy, a real hunger for a politics that wasn't corrupted by big money and, and the corporate political parties. So, I kind of kept going from there. In fact, now I say I'm practicing political medicine because it's the mother of all illnesses, and we've got to fix this one in order to get to the things that are literally killing us. And we can fix them, and I don't just mean our health challenges, our medical challenges, the incredible failure of our healthcare system, which has become a matter of profiteering by insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. It's not just the strict health, it's the health of our economy, the health of our climate, and the health of our planet, both in terms of the environmental threats and these wars that the U.S. has been really promoting in this so-called war on terror that has no end, that is blowing back at us now in every way imaginable, from failed states to new terrorist enclaves to this incredible refugee crisis. We can't keep going down this path. So, our motto is people, planet, and peace over profit. When you have two political parties that are both funded by big banks, fossil fuels, and war profiteers, there will be no fixing this from inside of those two parties. But outside, we've got the blueprint, we've got the solutions, and we do indeed have the numbers once we can get to a rallying point. And in my mind, that's what running for national office is about. It's about building the vehicle for real systemic political change at a time when the public is absolutely, starving for a politics of integrity.
And we're sort of seeing evidence that there is a desire for that type of more populist politics, insofar as when we see fair polling of Americans on basic questions like, does the government have some basic duty to provide some care, some health care to everybody regardless of ability to pay? Or is it okay to tax the richest of all Americans in order to reduce the wealth inequality that we see? The answers to those polls certainly tell us that there is a desire for that. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, because your policy platforms have been quite consistent throughout your various campaigns, governor, president, and now to 2016 for president. There has been a rise, as I no doubt know you're aware of, in Bernie Sanders' popularity over the last 6 months. And in looking closely at his campaign positions and yours, the similarities are much more prominent than the differences. So I'm wondering, from your point of view, are there significant areas of disagreement with someone sort of widely considered to be the populist candidate right now, Bernie Sanders?
Great question. And first, to your first point about the public being in a very progressive, position now. In many ways, the Green Party has been ahead of the curve
Sure.
on climate change, on nonviolent conflict resolution, on equal marriage, on civil liberties, you name it. We've been ahead of the curve, and finally the curve has caught up to us on green jobs and so on. The curve has caught up to us. And the agenda that Bernie articulates is very much a Green Party agenda with some exceptions, and I'll name them in a minute. But I think to your larger point, the public is fighting angry. And, you can see it likewise even in the Republican Party, where the candidates that are rising up, whether it's Donald Trump or Carly Fiorina, it's the candidates who are not part of the political system and haven't been part of Republican government. So there's enormous discontent out there. I think the difference between Bernie's campaign and my campaign is largely that we're working with a political party that supports this agenda. The Democratic Party, what shall we say, opposes and seeks to bury this agenda. And as much as I really support what Bernie is doing, and he's bringing a wonderful discussion to the Democratic Party, he's not the first one. You go back to Dennis Kucinich, who was redistricted out of office by the Democratic Party, never allowed into debates so they could silence him. They've allowed Bernie into debates because Bernie has promised that he's going to throw his support to whatever corporate Democrat wins, if it's Hillary Clinton, whatever. He's promised to be a good team player in the Democratic Party, so far they're allowing him into the debates. But go back to Jesse Jackson, who had a vibrant rebellion inside the Democratic Party in the 1970s. And when he really became a threat, the Democrats launched a smear campaign against him, calling him an anti-Semite and anti-Israel, which was all not true.
Well, but I think that there's definitely Jesse Jackson has now said he was wrong about many of the things that he said, which were labeled anti-Semitic, and I think that to sort of throw someone out merely because of some comments they made years in the past, we could debate whether that's valid, but Jesse Jackson had some real problems with his comments about Jews. I don't think anybody could deny that.
Well, from my understanding, and believe me, I was not political at this time, so I wasn't paying attention, but my understanding is that the Democratic Party really took his remarks out of context and really smeared him. But you don't have to go back so far. I mean, look at Howard Dean. What did Howard Dean get brought down for?
Yeah.
For screaming out of enthusiasm. So there is a pattern here that the Democratic Party really seeks to bury its progressive voices. Look at what they did after George McGovern won. They basically won the Democratic nomination, a very progressive anti-war candidate. They changed the rules of the game so that would never happen again. And that's when they created the Democratic Party's kill switch. The kill switch is superdelegates, and they are about half of the delegates to the Democratic Convention, which are not controlled by primaries, not controlled by voters, but are basically controlled by the inner circle of the Democratic Party. So it's really an illusion that a populist surge can control the Democratic nomination. And then you have the Super Tuesdays, which are also intended to bring down any candidate who can't raise enormous amounts, hundreds of millions of dollars, to be able to handle the TV advertising of 20 or more simultaneous primaries. So while these principled campaigns, Kucinich, Sanders, Howard Dean, and so on, while they raise really important issues, what's happened to the Democratic Party? It keeps marching to the right. It becomes more militaristic, more imperialistic, bigger wars, bigger friend to big corporations, offshoring our jobs. Clinton signed NAFTA and sent millions of jobs overseas, depressing wages at home. And it's Barack Obama and the Democratic Party who's really been pushing the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will do more of the same, and also did the runaround around the public option and around our right. As the richest country in the world, we have a right to health care as a human right, and we can actually provide it much more cheaply than the massive, wasteful private health insurance bureaucracy, which is wasting. It's about 17% of every dollar simply goes into paper pushing. So there are better ways to do this. The Democratic Party is on the wrong side of the issues and only gets more and more on the wrong side. So that's the main difference with Bernie, is that we're working to actually build a vehicle that's not going to go away at the primary. It's not going to go away in November. We are here for the long haul. We've been right. We've been ahead of the curve. And the time is going to come, for that deep change. We're past time right now, and the clock is ticking. Whether you're looking at the climate or the next Wall Street meltdown, we don't have time to throw away.
We've been speaking with Jill Stein, who's Green Party candidate for president in 2016. We will take a break, and tomorrow we will continue with Dr. Jill Stein and talk about the role of third parties in the United States.